Well, hi everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Friday lunchtime, which means it's time for us to talk about coping with feelings. And today, the subject I'm going to be talking about is emotional overload. The reason I want to talk about that is because we appear to have had way too much news that will affect us emotionally. And so I wanted to just yet again go over what we need to do to be able to stay, sane and in control of ourselves, even with all this incredibly devastating um, emotional stuff that is coming through. Hi there to everybody. Hi, Jeannie. I see you there. And to Jody, I just wanted to let you know that it's always a pleasure to see you here and everybody else that's watching in the background. Thank you so much for being here. For those of you who might be watching on the replay, Dear Mama Sal is a group of people who get together 3 times a week and we discuss subjects that we hope will be of value to our viewers. And the reason that we do that is because we feel that the more we talk about these issues that a lot of people don't talk about, the more we will help ourselves and other people cope with what's going on. And so I just wanted to let you know that today I'm going to encourage the viewers that are in the chat to vent. If that's what they want to do, I'm going to encourage them to get angry. I'm going to encourage them to say what they really feel and to really understand that that's okay. I'm going to start with a quote that says, I'm sad, I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm mad, and I'm disappointed. But you know what? I'll put on a smile and I'll move on. And it will hurt, but I will survive. And I thought that was a great quote for this week. Um, Remember to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. We encourage that because if I need to change a scheduled post, broadcast or anything, that's where I would let you know. I wanted to also let you know that I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor of any sort. I am a human being who has lived a long time, as you can tell by the color of my hair, and had to deal with a lot of things in my time. And the whole reason I do these broadcasts is to try and put into everyday language some of the complex things that we have to cope with on a daily basis, because I really do feel that we need more and more support in coping with our day-to-day lives. They get busier and busier, and yet the traumas that we seem to be dealing with seem to get worse and worse as well, whether it's, forest fires, whether it's mass shootings, whether it's war, whatever seems to be going on, it's over and above. And that's if our lives are going well. How about if you've got all those things going on and you're not well? Maybe you have some sort of illness, a serious one, then obviously, it all stacks up. And your ability to cope with things, if you're ill, you all know this. If you're ill, you're less tolerant, you're less able to cope with things unless you have a really good emotional intelligence level where you can really compartmentalize things and do it that way. So we're going to be talking a lot about stuff tonight. Again, thoughts and prayers for Beth, who's coping with a lot of stuff. Thoughts and prayers for our admin, Jody. She's coping with a lot of stuff at the moment. And I just wanted to let you know that we as a group go through the good, the bad, and the ugly together. And I believe that that is about the healthiest way that we can do it. I saw this quote and it said, in pursuit of wellness, it's vital to be aware of what we take and what we give. Seek what makes you feel at peace and open to discovery. Then share that knowledge and inspire others along the way. And I must admit that what I said is if I ever get onto YouTube, I will try and be as honest as I possibly can about all that's going on in my life, good, bad, and ugly, so that people could see at least one YouTuber that deals with reality as opposed to the Disneyland version, which I think all too often is shown. I did have one thing I wanted to show you for those of you. I'm going to get onto the discussion about emotional overload in a second, but I just wanted to show you a photograph for those of you who were watching last week when I was demoing that vacuum system that I have. I decided I would um, change all my bedding this week. It was time. And I did something that I said I would try and do and see what happened, which is I vacuumed my mattress, my pillows, and my cushions. And just out of reference, that's how much dust I got out of them. And I've got my Swiffer duster next to that to give you a reference. Amazing, right? And even then I realized I forgot one of the pillows, but that oh, and by the way, before I did it, I totally cleaned out the dust area of my machine, and I also cleaned the HEPA filter. So that is what I got out. I was pretty stunned to get that much out, quite honestly. I'm going, wow, it's amazing, really, what this thing draws out. So uh, just be aware. Seasonally, I was going to get out my winter clothes this week. I'm summer clothes this week, but I decided I wasn't quite ready to get rid of some of my winter ones. We're about to have almost a week of solid rain, and you know what that does to the temperature. So let's talk about which of the events have impacted you the most in the last couple of weeks, and can you give me some sort of input as to at what level? And maybe thinking about that quote that we had, what made you mad? What made you sad? What made you angry? And think about, all right, think about also what have you done. Let's share what we have done so people will know some of the tactics that we've had. When I say tactics, emotional intelligence is being able to feel the feelings, and all the way I need to remind us all it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to feel those feelings, but get over it. All right, that is the trick. Emotional intelligence is how quickly can you take a deep breath and go, okay, all that is going on, but now I need to get on with my life. That is how you stay mentally strong and able to cope. I think we've had so many examples of people in the Ukraine terrified, ongoing bombing, and yet they still get up and go out and feed the goats, or they're still out there tilling the land or doing whatever. And you go, wow, those people have got more ability to control. And there's part of me that goes, or is it a case of it's the only sensible thing they can do, and they know that? All right, if they don't have goats, then they won't have meat and milk, in which case, and the whole thing goes on. All right, so Jeannie is saying the elementary school in Texas, the killing of innocent children and 2 teachers. I thought of my own grandsons in Austin, and I grieve with parents who lost their young children. Absolutely. Jody is saying, I'm mad, sad, and frustrated at the children's lives that are going at risk going to school. I would say that we've got so many different things going on, right? Over and above, as I said, it's not the one thing alone. All right. Remember, we had a shooting a few days before that. All right. Remember the shooting in the supermarket. So it's not just the one. It's like, here we go again. And how many of you believed when we had Sandy Hook? What was that? Nearly 10 years ago, I would think. When we had Sandy Hook, we thought, this is it. This is the turning point. They will now restrict assault weapons. I don't know about you. When Sandy Hook happened, the one good thing I thought would come out of it was that they would put a ban on assault weapons. I still ask you all, what possible use is a military-style assault weapon to the average person? I think they should be restricted to the military. But does that infringe on the Second Amendment? It is 10 years ago. Thank you, Jody. It's December of 2012. Thank you very much. Does it? She's wonderful like that, isn't she? I just love how she does that. Um, but, you think about it. Um, should guns that are capable of killing multiple people be in the hands of anybody that's not trained to use them, and for good reason? But the Second Amendment says, okay, the right to bear arms, to defend yourself. Well, there's going to be the argument, well, if the if the government is going to have assault weapons, so should I. I don't know. Those of you who live in the States, and obviously I don't, I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. Um, for those of you who live in the States, I want to hear what you feel about this. Do you think that the Second Amendment meant that we have equal ability to defend ourselves against whatever the government might be carrying? Because if so, that's one argument, right? I just don't believe that's what the founding fathers meant, but I could be wrong. All I know is something really has to change. And if you go into the background of this young man that did this, some of you, I was horrified to find out that this man had actually decapitated his house, his family pet, the cat. Now, if that wasn't a red flag in somebody, if that wasn't a red flag in somebody's book, then what is? All right. They say that's part of the progression, right? That they do damage to harmless animals or whatever, and so to me, it's like, if they already knew that, somebody knew that, surely this should have been a red flag person. Jeannie's saying in Israel they have armed guards protecting school children. Do we need that here? Well, hello, I think they already are meant to have it here. And the armed guard decided, from what I understand, decided to do something for himself that day and left the school unattended. I'm trying not to judge too harshly, because I think at the beginning stages of any investigation like this, you're going to get lots of information, and who knows if it's all true. But I heard them say originally, and that's another problem, originally they said the guard was there, and then they pulled that back and said, no, he wasn't. So, somebody is covering their backsides here, right? I can imagine in a very small community, and your neighbor Fred, it has that job. Can you imagine? Do you have compassion for that man? Regardless of whether he did the wrong thing, can you imagine what he's going to have to live with, if he can live with it? All right. And you've got to think about both sides of this. How about those police officers in a very small community where everybody knows every police officer, and especially the sheriff? Can you imagine what they will go through for the rest of their lives? And I'm pretty sure that we'll see a change of power in that structure in the coming days. So I am pretty mad. I don't mind telling you. I was pretty mad about it all. I'm working very hard not to judge too harshly, quite honestly. How many of you can get to the point where you go, do you believe that everybody did the best they could with their knowledge, with their training, whatever? All right. Interesting point, Jeannie. Jeannie's saying there was a mother who was handcuffed by the police and then let go, and she went into the school and got her children out. Now, there were plenty of husbands that were there, Jeannie, from what I understand, that tried to get in to save children. They didn't care whose children. They had the wherewithal to go in and storm that shooter, and they were stopped from doing that. And this is like, for the rest. And you imagine if one of those fathers, and I believe it was true, was the father of somebody who was killed later. There were some that were killed immediately, and I don't think, they could have helped there. It was a tragic mistake. Yes, I quite agree. And, I'm trying very hard to have compassion all around. How many of you are working on that? Part of my healing is to say, wait a minute, do I think that they made the best decision they could? Or what if they felt that their officers were not sufficiently, it's a small community. They didn't have enough officers to storm that place without everybody getting killed, and therefore creating more lives. But the law today, when I say the law, I believe the training today says, regardless, officers go in and storm the shooter. Whether you've got everybody available or not, you go in and take that person out. You stand up and be counted in that. So the people who didn't, the people who stood back and waited, I don't want to be in their shoes, quite honestly. So how did you cope with it? That's what I want to know. You're still here and you're still wanting and able to talk about it, which shows a level of emotional intelligence, because you are able to get a grip enough to talk about it. And that is one of the things that you need to know. If you are still numb, 3 or 4 days later, then we're going to be talking about some of the things that you can be doing to help yourself. And this is for anybody who's not a regular, because we talk about these things each time it happens, because it's so important, because I don't believe that we are trained. Yes, Jeannie's saying the courage of the children who put blood on themselves so the killer wouldn't harm them. Those that lay dead, pretending to be dead. Good for them. That was good training. The school did well. How about the 11-year-old that took the cell phone off the dead teacher and phoned 911? You imagine the courage that took. All right. And to actually go to your dead teacher that you loved so much and take their phone and phone 911. And how about that operator, the dispatcher, who took the 1991 call, and because the child was whispering, she said, if you're whispering, I can't help you, and put the phone down. And it's like, aren't they meant to, aren't they meant to track down where that call is coming from? And if they had, they would have realized that's coming from a school. And a kid whispering in a school probably means there's trouble. Yeah, Jody's saying, I'm distracting myself by keeping busy as I can, still processing the sadness. Good. I believe this is a bit, like, as I said, I want to tell you, this reminds me of the pain I felt when Princess Diana died. While that was one person, and we're talking way more. How about the sadness, Jody, about the husband who recently died? I think he died yesterday, and his wife was one of the teachers. And he has subsequently died within days, and they say he died of a broken heart. To me, that was just like, wow, that is amazing. So, and remember, number one thing, acknowledge the emotion. If you are angry, say so. I'm angry. I'm really angry. I am fed up with this. But let's talk about that. What are you angry about? Yes, Jody's saying she read that he passed of a heart attack from stress and grief. Yeah, he died of a broken heart. It is, it literally, and can you imagine that, Right, and Jeannie is remembering that mother and father had 4 children who are now orphans. Within a week, they lost both their parents. Can you imagine the emotional scars on them? Not only the shooting, but then you lose both your parents because of it. So acknowledge your feelings. Very, very important. And remember, if it's a feeling, we can take control of it. Right? We can't control the shootings unless we vote out guns. And that's not going to happen in the States. I understand that. Um, but you are allowed to have feelings and anger and sadness and frustration. All those things are perfectly okay to feel. The other thing is, how many of you have noticed that when you're in that sort of traumatic state, it is difficult to maintain your healthy habits? What do you consider are your healthy habits, and did any of them change over the last week? All right. Did you have your sleep routine messed up in any way? That's a healthy habit, getting enough sleep. Did you by any chance find that you weren't as keen to go shower, or you couldn't be bothered to brush your teeth one day, or all of those things that we do on a daily basis that are part of our health and routine? When you go numb, that's when you can't, you feel the feelings, but you can't talk about them yet. It's too painful to talk about them. um Oh, Jeannie's saying that she feels angry when politicians use this for themselves, like Beto O'Rourke. Well, yes, and there'd be the other side of that, Jeannie. I'm certain you understand, because let's look both sides. There'll be other people that say, good for him for standing up and asking the awkward question. All right. I've noticed some of the reporters are asking very difficult questions at the moment, and ones that people cannot answer. So, but yes, you feel angry about that, and it's okay to feel angry about that. I totally get that. All right, and Jeannie's saying, in her view, what Beto did was wrong time, wrong place. Yes, it's okay for him to make the comment, but not at the very first. I think that was the first briefing. Am I correct? I am angry about the fact that they haven't got one person giving the message on what's happening. Normally in a situation like this, you have what I call a media relations person, and that person gets the information from everybody else and then gives one story. What we've got is one story coming from here, another story coming from there, everybody trying to get their 2 cents in. And that, quite honestly, is difficult, not only for the parents, but also for those of us who deeply care about what's going on. So be aware, and I think one of the most important things to be aware of, if your daily health and routines about your day-to-day life are being affected, that means you need to take some action. All right, it means you are in trauma of some sort, even if you don't realize it. And Jeannie, thank you for being, as usual, I always thank you for your honesty on these things. And to me, it is really important that we acknowledge them. And, as I said, and we will try as much as possible along the way to see both sides so that we stay balanced on that. I am certain, depending on your political leanings, you will either see it as a good thing or a bad thing. Does that make sense? And to me, it's like, let's make sure that we. But I think, Jeannie, you have every right to be angry about that. All right. Um, how many of you went for a walk? How many of you went outside and went and got fresh air to try and clear your mind? I wonder about that. I must admit, with the rain that's been going on, that was difficult for me. But I even, literally put on my my hoodie and went out and did some weeding in the garden and things like that, just so that I could get the fresh air and clear my mind away from what had happened. Hi there, Kimmy. And I then, came back inside, and I was there digging out weeds with a vengeance, right? I was angry and I needed to use up that energy, and I'll talk more about that. How many of you made a point of discussing this with the people that you're close to and that you trust? Jeannie's saying this was an informational meeting with some of the parents of the dead children when Beto chose to got close to the cameras. Yes, I understand that, Jeannie. I totally understand your point of view. All right, that wrong place, wrong time. Got it. Um, so I think we look at it and go, this is a really difficult thing to look at. All right. So, how many of you did reach out to friends and start talking about it, knowing that if I talk about it, all right, it will help me process it and it will help me get it out of my head and heal my heart a little bit? And I think it's something that people just don't understand the value of that, the value of venting with a safe person. And I say a safe person is somebody that will see both sides of it, but will listen and will hear you on what it is, knowing that your feelings are totally your feelings. They're not right or wrong. They are just what you are feeling. And that to me is a great lesson for us all to understand that and to understand that, there are so many um, that are affected by this. Jeannie, I forgot you've actually got kids in Texas. I want to tell you, I forgot that. You must have been absolutely, um, that would have hit at a whole different level. And she's saying that she told her son in law that I think, oh, Annie, her daughter, sorry, he showed her daughter that she was glad that the boys were safe, right? She has grandsons that live in Texas. So, yeah, I'd forgotten that. And that is a very interesting point, though, Jeannie. The fact that it happened in Texas, doesn't matter where in Texas, would affect you because you've got grandchildren in Texas. It affects us all because there were children that were killed. But when you first heard that, that must have really concerned you. Stress. I found this definition and I thought it was good. It said mental or emotional strain caused when the ego overrides the rational mind with the ridiculous assumption that they are absorbing everybody's problems and taking on more tasks than humanly possible will somehow result in greater love and appreciation. Unplug, recharge, and never trip the emotional overload breaker again. So, how many of you got out of the way of the news for an amount of time, whether it was to go outside or do whatever? I restricted my news intake to uh, in the morning with my first cup of coffee and at night. And I tried very hard to stay off the news channel for the rest of the day. And I was amazed how the news changed between those two broadcast times that I watched. So that is a really good thing to do if you've got these very emotional things going on. Restrict the amount of time that you are absorbing it. You'll still be thinking about it, but if you're getting it morning, noon, and night, it's going to be damaging to you. Did any of you decide to cope with it by pursuing a hobby? I must admit that I intentionally went and did some work in my craft room this week, and I haven't done anything in the craft room since Christmas time, quite honestly. Um, well, I think I've done one thing, but it was like, okay, this is the day I need to go and do some work with crafts. Why? Tactile uses different part of your brain. Did I still think about it every now and then while I was doing it? Yes, but the point is that I spent a good 4 hours away from the television because I don't have a television in my craft area, away from the television and away from what was going on. And I did that intentionally. Anybody else do that? Anybody else get creative? Maybe you went and cooked or baked or did. I baked a lot of bread this week, or rather made a lot of dough this week and put it in the freezer. There's something about kneading dough that it just is really good for my soul. And so I was busy with sourdough, and I was just busy, um, making stuff. I've got enough bread dough ready for about 2 weeks, I think. But, it wasn't a waste of time. It was just time that I would normally spend every day, because I sort of almost make one small amount of dough every day. Um, and now what I did is I just made it in advance. Yes, Jody's saying we made Indian food, an Indian food feast, in fact, that took some creativity and time. Yes. And that is excellent use of it. Jeannie's saying, you see, that's what I love about my viewers. They know the tricks of the trade, right? She's saying, I made a beef stew in my crock pot for over 4 hours, and gave some to her dog's groomer. And yeah, exactly. If you do something that's creative, it will help you process. And how many of you noticed it was still there, but you were processing it at a different level? How about this one? When life gets hectic and you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to focus on people and things you're most grateful for. When you have an attitude of gratitude, frustrating troubles will fall by the wayside. When you can look at it and go, okay, I know what's going on. I know what I feel. I know I can't do anything about it at this moment other than vote when the time comes. But, the truth is, then it's time to move away for a while, all right, and look after you. Did any of you try some breathing or yoga or anything that breathing exercises, maybe meditation? Did any of you go that route? Because that's another very good thing to do, all right, is just to take the time to do that. Maybe listen to a guided meditation, all right, to help you just get your mind away from what's going on. And the famous quote by Henry Kissinger, who said, there cannot be a stressful crisis the next week. My schedule is already full. I felt a bit like that. I don't know about you. It was like after everything that was going on, even up to the shooting in the supermarket, I thought, boy, that's enough stress for 1 week, really. All right. And then the next one came, and that was the overload. Jody's saying, I prayed. I should have added that. Thank you, Jody. I prayed and listened to music. Yes. Very important thing to do. Distract your mind. And that part of your mind, probably, as I always say, play the music that you most relate to, depending on your age. And it's really important to do that, and preferably put it on and go for a walk if you're capable. Now, the thing I wanted to really talk about as well is something I learned from Benji, and that is take the negative energy and use it. And before I get on to that, Jeannie just added, we went to Mass on Wednesday night for the Ascension and prayed for everybody who died. Yes, absolutely. And I'm certain most of us have been praying for those who died, but most of all for their parents and friends, and because there's not much more we can do for those who have died. What we can do is help those who survived, and the parents and the friends and everything else. And so to me, I believe, if whatever your belief system is, but I believe they're in heaven and they're fine. All right. When there's nothing more I can do except let them know that it was wrong. And I must admit, I have done that. I've been angry enough to say this was wrong. And it's going to come out how wrong this was and how many people did the wrong thing, when there is a protocol that says how to deal with this, and some people did not follow the protocol. They decided for whatever reason, right, not to follow protocol. So we will hear about that. but good. Remember that doing something that is meditative, whether it's praying or yoga or guided meditations, anything like that, will help you just break out of numb and deal with things. It'll help you process. Now, this is something that I thought we all needed to remember in these crisis times, these traumatic times, all right? Don't let little things take up too much room in your heart, or you'll spend your entire life being annoyed and upset. That is the whole thing about emotional intelligence, is that you can feel the pain for that split second and you can move past it and get on with your life. I don't know about the rest of you, but I've seen so many reporters on the brink of being in tears. I've watched reporters talking to parents and then being moved by the parents' reaction and feeling helpless. You could see they felt helpless because they knew that nothing they said would help at this time. And so I don't wish that on anybody, but I do want you to remember that about the worst thing you can say is I understand, or I've been there. Maybe you've lost a child. And if you have, then the tendency is to say, I understand, I've been there. But the truth is, do we really understand another person's grief? I don't think so. I can say my heart bleeds for you. I know what I went through, and I cannot possibly imagine what you're going through. I've got some idea because I've been through it, but I have no idea. See, that is the truth. We have no idea what the other person is going through. Jeannie's saying, did you see the reporter who interviewed a father who lost his daughter? The man cried, the reporter cried, and they comforted one another. Yeah. And that to me is very healthy reporting, quite honestly. I know that the reporter probably beat up on themselves and said, I shouldn't have taken it on. But the truth is, how can you not? Even talking about it affects me. Christina Aguilera said, my emotions overload because there's no one to hold on to. There's no shoulder here to lean on. I'm walking on my own. I'm really sad that Christina felt that way the day she gave that quote, but let me tell you that it's really important to share your feelings. Really, really important. And that's why, even though I had something else planned for today, I decided, we need to talk about this a bit more. We need to make sure that everybody remembers what to do. So I want to get back to my point about what I learned from Benji. One of the things that Benji said that he was taught by his mom was that whenever he is angry, he needs to take that energy and use it to a good purpose. Hi, Andrea. Good, and many hugs to you as well. And how are things in Berlin? I I remember Benji telling me that one time, and I've lived by it ever since. When I get that angry or that upset, I know that energy can be used for good. That negative energy can be used for good if I want it to, right? And that has to be a choice. So what I did this week was I totally stripped my bed, right? Um, and I washed all my bedding. And to me, that is it took me most of the day. And as you heard, I also vacuumed the mattress and, did make work type project almost. And, to me, that was a good use. It was physical, stripping a bed, you're walking up and down and rolling things up and going to the laundry and filling, I think it took me, I've got a really big washer and it still took me 2 loads to get it all done. And then, vacuuming the mattress took more energy. And so I really worked on using what I had learned from Benji. And did any of you decide to use that route, which is, I know I'm angry, therefore let me use that anger in a positive way? As I said, I went and attacked weeds in the garden, right? Because to me, that was positive use of that energy. I I did something else as well. I can't remember what I did. But there were all sorts of things. When life gets hectic and you feel overwhelmed, take a moment to focus on the people and things you are most grateful for. Remember that? Be grateful if you can. Were any of you grateful this week as a way of coping? I'm sure, for example, Jeannie, you were grateful that your children weren't in that part of Texas. Some of you might be grateful for the fact that this shines the light on it yet again, and maybe this time we'll get something done. I don't know. Let's hope so. Um, you know, Being grateful is a great balancer. Andrea's saying it was a hard week for us. Monday was the funeral of my grandfather, and Tuesday was his birthday, and the anniversary of me and my husband. It was a hard day, and yesterday I had a great day with my aunt. Yes, that is the other thing I wanted to make sure that you understand. I've had a difficult week this week, over and above the tragic mass shootings. I had spent nearly a week without taking any medication for my blood pressure, so that meant I had to be really aware of pacing myself and not overdoing anything. Um, and then I got the new medication on Monday, and I want to tell you, I'm still coughing. And I must admit, I'm not coughing the same way. But I'll talk about that in a second. So it was like I was already feeling down, and then the second shooting, the mass shooting happened, and it was just like, really. And I did find myself going a little bit numb. It was just like, wow, I don't even want to think about this, and yet you have to, right? Yeah, Jeannie is confirming it. She's so grateful that her grandsons are okay. I was grateful we are back in the house, and so grateful my cane is helping me walk. Yes, we can be grateful for so many little things, right? Andrea's saying we talked a lot, and we had ice cream and went to the cinema to watch the new Doctor Strange. This day helped her a lot cope with her feelings about what happened in these last weeks. Yes, and to help somebody grieving by taking them to a movie is actually a very, very clever thing to do. Why? Because just for that hour and a half, plus whatever time, a lot of their feelings will, have a chance to just stand aside for a second. And yet, on the other hand, I can remember being heartbroken early on in my life. I was in my I think I was in my late teens, and I'd had a breakup of a relationship, and I was really, really feeling the pain, I'm certain we can all remember. And then I went to a London show, and it was Don Quixote. And I cried most of that performance, and everybody thought I was crying because of the story, and I wasn't. I was crying, using that opportunity to cry about the breakup of the relationship. So that is another thing. Did any of you decide to cope by watching movies or doing whatever? Because that can do it. I found I was spending more time playing games online. You know, um, but what I tried to do was to pick logic type games and games that required brain power, not just what I call idle type stuff. I really worked on doing things that would use up my bandwidth, as I like to call it. I only have so many active brain cells, and I wanted to use as many as possible. And so, therefore, I started to do logic puzzles that I don't normally do. I started to do, and math puzzles that I don't normally do. But I did them because I wanted to use up that part of my brain so that I wasn't spending too much time on the other side. And I thought this was a cute quote. And it said, "I'm probably going to fall in love with you if you don't realize how good looking you are, if you employ old fashioned terms of endearment, if you do not bat an eye when I spontaneously launch into a different voice or accent in the middle of a sentence, um, you even if you smell like something incredible from my childhood, or you have enormous dreams." And then it says that you distract me from my real life. You know how to listen. You are self-deprecating. It means you beat up on yourself, all right, in a fun way. But it comes across as funny, not uncomfortable. And that we cannot stop laughing around each other. You fall in love with me a little. And I think that is so important, to be with somebody who loves you for all your faults. And this was a quote I think was so relevant. A note to self: I am allowed to cry. Did any of you cry when you heard the news? As the news kept unfolding, are any of you still crying? Excuse me. As I said, I'm still coughing. I am allowed to scream. I wonder if any of you screamed. I am so sorry. I may not get through this broadcast. And lastly, remember that I am allowed to give. I'm not allowed to give up. I will get done somehow. Sometimes this just goes away. So hold on. I'm so sorry. Now you know what I'm dealing with. And it's the most peculiar thing. And I've taken antihistamine. And my doctor said, I should give it 2 weeks for the changeover in medication. But boy, I still seem to have the same cough, but it's only been a week. So maybe. Bear with me. So did anything good happen to you this week? That's another way of coping with it, right? Think about the good of the week. And for me, Benji, Doug came to visit me on Monday. For those of you who don't know, Doug is my son of choice. He chose me as a mom. And he and I, what I always do is, when he is coming, I have a honey-do list, things I can't do on my own or I need help with. And I made, obviously this was before the second shooting, and I was really delighted, as usual, how much we got through. And what he really appreciated is that I think through things. Oh, Jeannie's saying, oh, wait, first of all, Jody's saying I had lab work done, found out that I'm no longer diabetic. Yes, isn't that incredible? And you've done that the hard way, Jody. You've had a couple of really tough years to be able to get that to happen. All right. And the main thing is for those of us who are diabetic, it is good to know that it is possible to do. But how many years did you work on it? And including the fact we know you had a bypass. But what it did was teach you that you could live on totally different food. I always think back, Jody, to the 3 months you spent on liquids alone before that bypass. And you go, you taught me that it's possible to do. And so it's 6 years since 8 years since your diagnosis, all right? And you've spent most of those years trying to adjust your eating habits and, with other ailments that have been going on. I'm trying not to get too angry with the cough because I know the cough is a reaction to something that's in the medication. And what I heard from my pharmacist is just be aware that it could still happen with this new medication. So there's something that is in both of them that could cause the cough. So I'm, I'm trying not to get angry at the cough, but just know, okay, apparently if it, this is now just over a week. Been on the medication, got it on Monday. So I haven't been taking the medication for a full week. But I will take the medication for 2 weeks and then decide, am I still coughing more? I have noticed, as I said, that I'm coughing not quite as much as deeply. You saw a that's about a pretty bad attack, but the attacks I was having before, I was literally coughing up stuff from my lungs. It was that bad. So yes, I still have the cough. And yes, it's difficult to speak through it. But it's a lot better. It's a different cough. When I say different, it's not as damaging to me, I believe. And I think it's important to be grateful. I'm grateful for that. Even though I still wake up in the night choking and coughing like that. All right, and if that happens probably a couple of times during the night. Or maybe it's not true. Maybe once last night. All right. So who knows? Maybe it might well be improving and I don't realize it. Um, quite honestly, I was definitely coughing less when I wasn't taking anything. you know, I'm also trying to keep track of does it happen when I eat? Because that is a question. Maybe there's something going on in my throat that's causing it because that's what it feels like. I get this tickle about here. And then the cough follows it. So, it's just like I'm trying to take notes so I know. And it's not true. It's not only happening when I eat, as you saw. All right. I haven't eaten anything today. I've only had liquids. It's Friday. I try not to have food until the late afternoon, any day. And which is why I believe I've lost 13 pounds. You know, um, However, I haven't weighed myself because I know I've been, cooking more bread, which means I'm eating more bread. And I did make a really nice loaf of bread for when Benji, Dougie came to visit me. So I thought I'd report back on some fun news. Um, how many of you remember I came up with this ingenious plan on how to get big boxes under my deck? And for those of you who wonder that broadcast, I've got a 29-foot deck, and it's wasted because I can't crawl in there to push things in and crawl in to pull out boxes. So what I did was I waved my magic wand, which is a really good problem-solving tool for me, and said, okay, if you had a magic wand, what would you have? And I said, I'd have a railway line. you know that you could just press a button and the boxes would come out on their own, and that made me realize I needed to put the boxes on wheels in some way. And as some of you will have been through the broadcast, I found some slatted um, carriers made for what do you call them? Planters. So they were very sturdy and good wheels on them. And I went, that would carry a fair amount of weight. And then what I decided was, what if I had a series of them? Remember, I knew I wanted a train. So what if I had a series of them? Was it going to be possible to push those down into the crawl space like this? And then I attached them from here and here with some rope. And then there's rope at this end as well. And, it was amazing because when I said to Doug, I need help carrying the boxes because they're too heavy for me to carry, he sort of rolled his eyes a bit, like, really. And he kept telling me all the things that could go wrong with it. And I said, no, I understand that, but let's try it. And it worked. So I now have my big Christmas boxes under my deck. And is it perfect? No. One of the things that Doug was concerned about is because the wheels are those rotating ones, that the boxes could go in different directions. And I said, yes, but when I pull them out, they'll still come towards me. That's what I was interested in. And it did work. And so I now have a little bit more room in that room now that I got those big boxes out. So that was good. I like this quote. It said, life has many ways of testing a person's will, either by having nothing happen or nothing happen at all right, or by having everything happen at once. Did any of you feel this week was made more difficult because it was like so many things going on at the same time? And, I noticed that I had, all that news stuff, and then the stuff about my medication was on top of that. And then a very dear friend of mine, sounds like she's really sick. And it was just like, oh, how much more can I take? And then I quickly said, sorry, I don't want to know. Because I realized if I said, how much more can I take, that I really was asking for more. So I went, no, that's enough. I don't need more. So forget what I just said, please. I thought I'd give you some feedback on this weight loss. I have noticed that I have lost 1.5 inches on my waist. That surprised me. I didn't think I'd lost that much around my waist, but I have. And I'm now onto my next major goal. And I'm sort of 4 pounds away from that, right? I've been doing 5-pound goals, not huge ones. Just first thing is to hit the next 5-pound goal. The second thing is to maintain that goal. And then the third thing is to get to the next 5 down. The interesting thing is that maintain section, all right? Because what I know is I've been doing the right things, but now I need to not do what I normally do, which is reward myself with bad food. But this week I gave myself a pass to bake bread and eat it because that was my comfort food this week. But I made sure that I made the dough and then put the dough away. I was talking about Doug, I keep saying Benji's visit, Dougie's visit, and Doug bought us a couple of really good steaks, and we cooked them in the caloric, and on the grill pan that it has at sort of the maximum heat, which is like 500, and it really did sear them nicely, and it looked really good. However, I did have the fan on, and the fan in my microwave was also on, and I didn't want to set off my alarms. I was delighted to hear that anybody with these modern fire alarms is having the same problem that I am, which is, cooking a steak is on a grill inside is, sets off these alarms. And what Doug said he does is before he cooks a steak, he disconnects his fire alarm because he knows it's going to happen. So I said, well, I'm not getting up and down on a ladder every time I cook a steak. I found another way for me. And by the way, touch wood, I cooked the steak uh, for both of us, and I didn't set off the alarm. So I was, I think I found the answer for me. Um, and he was going to be bringing salad as well, and he didn't. So then I went, okay, I can cope with this. And I know that he's not a big guy into potatoes or anything anymore. So what I did was I said, okay, here are the vegetables I've got, and I can also do a basic salad if that's what you need. But it was fun, and we ended up with steamed broccoli with cheese over it, marbled cheese over it, and then we also had another vegetable, peas. He likes peas. So we had peas and broccoli with cheese over it. And then we had the steaks. And oh, they were so good. They were so good. I was very, very happy. We also did another task. What was it? Oh, he did the bank for me. Those of you who know, I've got a very steep bank at the back of my property. And he weed whacked that and swept the back section of my property. I've got brick and cement at the back here, and there've been a lot of stuff coming off the trees. Pollen pods and goodness knows what else. No wonder I was struggling with my allergies, and he swept all of that without my realizing it. So that was really kind of him. What was the other job he did? Huh. Oh, the air conditioning unit. He was helping me work out how to put that together and how to put it into the window. And the little thing just needs adjustment by about mm, half an inch, I think. And then it'll be fine. I think I'm going to need to have some metal cut, but never mind. I'll borrow a neighbor for that. I I wondered if any of you were lucky enough to have friends visit this week that helped distract you. I I am a great believer that I need to start inviting more people over to my home. And the reason for that is because my home really did look quite sparkly clean, and he even mentioned that. And I was surprised about it myself. It was just like I've definitely, getting the house less busy. It's still busier than I want it to be because I'm still unpacking, but it's getting contained, all right? I thought this was an interesting one by somebody I've never heard of before called Timber Hawkeye. Have anybody ever heard of that person? I hadn't. Said, you can't calm the storm, so stop trying. What you can do is calm yourself, knowing that the storm will pass. All right? So we can't change the externals, but we can change ourselves and how we deal with the externals. I also noticed that I have lost some weight here. Um, when I did the measurements, as I said, I was surprised that I've lost an inch and a half around my stomach, and I've probably still got another 10 to go. But slowly, slowly. But I have lost also weight around here, and I think I lost about an inch. So I'm using that. And again, these are the pants that I got when the fire happened, and look how much extra room I have on them now. If I stand apart, So you can see I've got, I would say there's about 2 inches extra material in these now. And what I'm finding myself doing is spending a lot of time, hitching my clothes up. And anybody who's lost weight, Jody, you've lost huge amount of weight. Um, did you say it's 150 pounds now? Now, for those of you who are gasping at the idea of 150 pounds, you have to know that Jody um, has been really ill, and medications will put on weight. And then she also has something called lymphedema, which is water, very heavy water retention, where you just balloon up. And I relate to that. And that's right. She's lost a total of 150 pounds. Can you imagine? Boy, if I lost 150 pounds, I'd be probably my ideal weight. Hold on one second. Now, I know this changes depending on where you read, but as you all know, my goal is to become overweight, not obese. And I was printed this particular checklist out. And for my height, it's saying my ideal weight. Oh, my BMI. That's right. Do you all know your BMI? Your body mass index? My ideal BMI is somewhere between 19 and 24. Now, I need to tell you that I am 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5.5 points above that. So I got a long way to go. Jody, do you know your BMI? Are you at the right BMI now? And when I read that, I went, boy, that's a long way to go. But if I just keep doing it 5 pounds at a time, I have to say that I've already come down 3. So initially I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 to go down, and I'm already down 3 of them. So but to get to overweight, I only have about 2.5 to go. That's exciting. You can't remember your BMI. That's very useful. But you still have another 50 pounds to lose. Is that to be healthy or to be overweight? I'm talking about coming out of obese and being overweight. That's whoever thought I'd be happy to be overweight rather than obese. Once I get to overweight, then I can concentrate on healthy. It makes me laugh. And this was said, I don't know Jackie Kennedy. Yeah, Jackie Kennedy. Now, she knew a lot about grief. She said one must not let oneself be overwhelmed by sadness. How many of you can remember, if you're old enough, the classic shot of her so incredibly, supposedly under control after the death of JFK? And to this day, it's just like how she coped with that, the trauma of being in the car next to him. You imagine the trauma of that. And then, busy on Air Force One swearing in the next president while your husband is in a casket behind you. It must have been such a traumatic time for her. And yet she managed to keep herself under control, or what we saw was totally under control for so many years. It was incredible. Are any of you worried? Do you feel worried at all about what happened this week? And the reason I want to talk about that, because, what about the children without, who went from having two parents to having none? Right? Are you worried about those children? Are you worried about the emotional scars on the children that survived it? I think it came home to me when they interviewed one little boy that had been survived, and he said quite openly, and with incredible, uh, what should I say, just with incredible truth. He said, "I'm really frightened to go back to school in case I get shot." And so, how many other children, not even in Texas, how many other children hearing about this will be frightened to go back to school in case they get shot? But the point that I want to make is that worrying about them will not help them or you. And I'm going to give you this quote. It says, "Worry is a total waste of time, and it doesn't change anything. All it does is steal your joy and keep you very busy doing nothing." So don't use that as an excuse, right? I kept saying to myself, if I can get up and do something, I am in control. I am not letting the worry overwhelm me. However, that was difficult when I realized that every time I got up to do something, I was coughing again. And so, it was, and then I said, no, you're using the coughing as an excuse not to get up and do things. So, I had to really work on what was possible to do and do the best I could within that range. And then not just sit and worry about the children or how they were going to cope. Hi, Nasha. Good to see you. How are you feeling, honey? And so you look at it and go, overload of our brains, of our emotional capacity, obviously is different for every person. All right. Because some people are emotionally intelligent to the degree that they can handle a major traumatic event like that. And some don't have that bandwidth, in which case they either will go just cut it out completely because that's the only way they can cope, or they will be sucked in, yeah, sucked in by it and end up being unable to function. And I'm hoping that didn't happen to any of you. How about this one? Brain, sorry for the overload. Tummy, sorry for the butterflies. Pillow, sorry for the tears. Heart, sorry for the damage. Isn't that pretty? Um, this was an interesting one, which is this quote says, normal people have an incredible lack of empathy. They have good emotional empathy, but they don't have empathy for an autistic kid who is screaming at a basketball game because he can't handle the sensory overload. Or the autistic kid having a meltdown in a school cafeteria because there is too much stimulation. And I thought I'd talk about that. How many of you feel that part of the problem of this is that we get overstimulated? All right. It's like there are too many buttons pressed. And I think the difference with an autistic child is that they react to it in reality, right? They scream. Whereas we try to contain that because we have the ability to do that. But understand that screaming because of the sensory overload is understandable. All right. And it is our natural filter that stops us. Whereas in an autistic child, there is that filter isn't there. I hope that makes sense. I'm pretty certain, Jeannie, you have a grandson who's autistic, and I would like to ask you, what is his reaction to overstimulation? And are there certain things that he can tolerate and other things that he can't, that you're aware of? Because I think in that there's learning for us all, to be grateful for the fact that we can not scream, that we can feel sadness and anger and not necessarily verbalize it. But on the other hand, I wonder who is healthier. Is the autistic child, in a way, healthier, if you think about that? Leslie Davenport said this: our body, mind, and emotions are so interconnected that if we aren't getting enough physical support, it can affect our ability to concentrate. And so that is why I made a point to talk to people this week, more than I normally would. All right. I knew I needed to be in contact, right? That connection is really important when you're dealing with sensory overload. And I made a point of doing that. My sadness was that in doing that, I found out very bad news about a friend of mine. And then you can imagine, I put down that telephone call and went, wow, I maybe won't be looking for more trouble right now. And I literally, as sorry as I feel about this, and I realized that my sadness about them is not going to help them. So I concentrated really hard this week about what can you do to help? Is there anything you can do? And I believe that being who I am is the most important thing. But it's just every now and then I need to just send that extra note to say hi, or that extra note to say I'm thinking of them. You will always suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everybody else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. Warren Buffett said that. I'm going to read that again. You will always suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everybody else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. So how many of you are able to do that better? I don't think, that it ever will be totally possible. But do any of you feel that you are better equipped to deal with this now? And if so, in what way? What is it that you have learned from coming here that you can say, okay, when this happened, I immediately knew I needed to do this, this, and this, and that's helped me. I'd be interested in that if any of you had that process. And I really realized that to be able to help my friend, I'm going to need to let go of my stuff. Uh, And I thought about that, where I thought, gosh, I really was wanting to talk about my stuff, but I ended up not doing so because her stuff was so important at that particular moment. But I will. You're right. I will make sure she knows that I too have had my struggles, not to the degree that she has, but we each have our struggles. And I noticed that that it's been a long time since she asked me how I am. No matter where you are in your life, celebrate it. No matter where you are in your life, celebrate it. It's either a product of your growth or a place that will help you grow. So, cheers to today. Be grateful we have this day. Think of all the children that won't. Think of all the parents. I don't know about the rest of you. The thing that really hit me hard was that some parents said goodbye to their children as they dropped them off at school. And the only way they could find out if they were dead was to give a DNA sample. That's how bad the damage was. That got to me. I don't mind telling you that that hurt me really sore. That made me really angry because it made me realize how damaging those bullets were. That the only way that they could identify some of those children was with a DNA sample. Not nice. So I want to have compassion for those fathers who wanted to go in and help and were stopped, and that realized that their child died because later than they tried to get to save them. That must be horrifying for those parents. All right. I do any of you can any of you feel compassion for the school guard, whatever you want to call that person, who took a me day for whatever reason and wasn't at school that day? Can any of you feel any compassion for that person that was meant to be there protecting the children? I hope at some level you can find the compassion to do that, because I just hope he's strong enough to be able to cope with the guilt of that. Not everybody is, maybe not. I pray for him. As I said, I also have compassion for the cops who didn't go in when the protocol is you're meant to go in. Yes, Jeannie's saying she can feel compassion. We don't know what he needed to do. Yes, I don't think that's been said yet, has it, Jeannie? Let me know if you know why he had that, why he wasn't there. And and to me, it's going to be really difficult. Bad enough in a big city, but in a small town, can you imagine him sitting at the diner and everybody, going, "That's the guy who wasn't there when he should have been." Ugh. Here's another one that got me angry, and I wondered if any of you can understand that. I had a feeling of disgust. And that was definitely, I had a feeling of disgust when I found out that the NRA was having their convention in Texas this week. That disgusted me that they didn't delay it by a month. I was disgusted. Does that make me right? No. I'm just telling you that I know where their priorities are. And can I feel compassion for the event? That to try and cancel it and move it a month would be horrendous and very costly, and a lot of people would lose income because of all the hotel rooms that are booked and all. Yeah, I can feel compassion for that, but not much. I got to be quite honest on that one. Not much. Jeannie, wrong time, wrong place. Cancel the convention. So I agree with you about wrong time, wrong place, right? How about compassion for the people who sold those assault rifles to a 19-year-old legally? We know it was legal. He was 19. But can you imagine that you were the one that sold him the rifles? Can you feel compassion for that person who didn't do the background check, maybe? And also, can you feel any compassion for the lawmakers and the cops? And if you can, then you have learned a lot. If you can't, then you still have some work to do. So be gentle with yourself if you possibly can. And know that this has not been an easy week for any of us. Right? This has not been an easy week for any of us. And so that is why I wanted to make sure that we talked about it and discussed it. Does anybody have any other part of this that they want to verbalize? There's another feeling that you had. As I said, I was surprised when disgust came up for me, and I went, yeah, really weird. Because I'm not somebody that gets disgusted by things too often, but I did notice that that was my feeling that I had when I heard the NRA wasn't canceling their convention. I just went, really. You know, think about it all. We had great joy this week, by the way, when we heard that one of our viewers, Lauren, who's in a wheelchair, has gone away for the weekend on a university get together. They all do online learning, and we're all getting together this weekend for a trivia contest, probably with all the questions about their topic. But she has got a 5-star hotel room, if you like, for somebody who's in a wheelchair. She struggled with the wrong hotel room so often, but this one has the most gorgeous bathroom that's probably bigger than anybody else's bedroom. All right. And it has, it really is like a 5-star hotel room. And the actual room itself is huge. And I couldn't help but feel overjoyed for her, if there is such a thing to be overjoyed. I just such joy for her to know that she was going to have that luxury. And of course, there's the upside to that, all right, which is that she will go home and feel disappointed in the facility that she has. But, how nice that she gets to enjoy that. I like this quote as well, everybody. Sometimes it's better to break down in tears and show your emotions than it is to keep it all inside and not tell a single soul. Do not bottle it up. If you're angry, tell somebody. Even if you think, tell a safe person. What is a safe person? Somebody that knows that you're just being angry. And sometimes what you vent isn't necessarily what you totally believe. It's just what comes out. Have any of you noticed that? You're sometimes when you vent, it's not your logical mind, it's your child mind. You can feel your inner kid is reacting to something. And I know how important it is for that inner child to speak and go, yeah, it really pisses me off that X, Y, and Z, right? Or I'm really disgruntled and disgusted at the NRA. It's important to say those words. All right. Can I have compassion? Yes. But I need to, and when I say it, whether you type it, whether you verbalize it, doesn't matter. It is important to get those feelings out of your body and into the real world. So, did any of you learn anything this week? Did any of you learn anything from all this that happened this week? And while you're thinking about that, I found this quote, and it said, "True emotional healing doesn't happen without feeling. The only way out is through." In other words, if you want to get over the emotional load, You need to acknowledge all those feelings. I really recommend, I do this. I haven't got it right next to me at the moment, but I have a list. Hang on a second. And this is a trick that I wanted to show you because it really helps me. Just hold on 1 second. Just need to get it. Oh, that's interesting. Nyasha's saying, I've been on a personal mission to understand myself better. And the more I do, the more calm I get. I hope that it stays that way. Yes, it's like peeling an onion, though. Be aware that, the more you peel the onion, the more you find out what you need to work on. All right, so let me go through a list of remorse. And, what I love is this list has different headings and then different words to describe that. And it's interesting to me. What I do is I read the list to try and find out what I'm really feeling. All right. So do any of you feel degraded by what happened this week? Delinquent? Do you feel depraved? Do you feel disgraced, evil, exposed, humiliated, judged, mortified, shamed, sinful, wicked, or wrong for what happened this week? And then those are the strong ones. But how about if we take the light ones? I'll leave out the medium ones in a moment. Did any of you feel embarrassed by what happened this week? Or maybe sheepish about your reaction to what happened this week? And for those of us who are angry, what level of anger was it? Would you say that you were bitter, burned up, enraged, fuming, furious, heated, incensed, those sort of words? Or would you say it was more medium, with just aggravated, annoyed, antagonistic, crabby, cranky, exasperated? All right? Those sort of words. Or were you just lightly angry in terms of being dismayed, grim, impatient, resentful? So what I like about this list, it tells me the level of my feeling, because the words that actually connect with me are the ones that I want to know. So I can assure you, when this went down and I read, was I burned up, enraged, and fuming? I went, yeah, all of those. Not for long, but I was. And how about, were any of you in a level of confusion? And strong confusion would be feeling befuddled or chaotic or confounded, rattled. Were you shook up at all? Were you speechless at any point? Because those are confused feelings, all right? And here are some of the medium ones. Did you feel adrift or bewildered or puzzled or disconnected or disorganized, disturbed, dizzy, or foggy? Those are mediumly confused words. Or the light ones being distracted, uncertain, unfathomable, undecided, unsettled. You see, to me, I was definitely related to uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable with my feelings and with what went on. So, it's an interesting thing to get a list of feelings. And I keep it in my day timer so that whenever I have emotional overload, whenever I am triggered too much, that I can go through. And, each time I get triggered, it's on different things, right? And I will then know which buttons are getting pressed. Does that make sense to everybody why that works? Because if I know the level of my anger, if I know the level of my confusion, if I know the level of my concern, here we go. Then I can do something. I'm going to need to go. All right, everybody. This is Dear Mama Sal saying be careful. Be careful and look after yourself. I urge you to do everything you know how to control these feelings. And I want to finish with a quote that I really loved. And it said, it's not information overload, it is filter failure. So know that if we cannot control the sensory overload, it means that we have not put up a strong enough filter to protect ourselves. And that is what you need to do more work on. All right. Because when you can put a barrier between you and what's going on out there, and isn't that what Zen is all about? Isn't that what, you know, the monks are able to do? All right. Anybody that is incredibly peaceful, the way they do it is they put up a filter that goes, I am only interested in controlling myself. Whatever's happening out there is none of my business. I can observe it, but I don't have to feel it. I can observe it. That's what Warren Buffett said, right? You can observe it, but if you don't let the feelings overtake you, if you can control your feelings, then that is true happiness. Think about that. That is true happiness. Because no longer is the outside world affecting you. You choose how much you get affected. All right, everybody, I'm going to go. This is Dear Mama Sal saying it's a very difficult week for a lot of us. For those of you who were kind enough to be here, please know that I appreciate the fact that you are all lifelong learners. Why? You keep coming back for more. And you keep learning more, and by just so doing, you are not only helping yourself, but you're helping other people, those around you. This is Dear Mama Sal saying, I love you dearly. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Jody, for your support and for being my admin, and Jeannie for always being there as well, and for all of you who are here. Thank you very much indeed. Remember, when you get that angry, go do something that needs to be done. Right? Do something you're procrastinating about. Why take the negative energy and use it for a good purpose? That is very healthy. This is Dear Mama Sal saying bye bye for now. We'll see you this evening.